The plains of Europe in the early 19th century. Before dawn, Napoleon's army forms up for the decisive battle. Tens of thousands of soldiers take up positions, dense lines of infantry with muskets, artillery advanced, cavalry awaiting orders in the depths of the formations. Drums beat a rhythm, officers shout commands. The enemy is considered ordinary, the same men, the same guns. No one suspects that today's war will be different. The battlefield seems familiar, but this is the last minute of an old era. A few kilometers from the battlefield, behind the hills, a platoon of modern tanks begins to move. The vehicles move without lights, using the terrain for camouflage. The crews don't see the battlefield with their eyes, they see it through screens. Thermal imagers record thousands of warm silhouettes, gathered in dense masses. For the tankers, this is not an army, it's a convenient target, concentrated according to outdated rules of war. A modern reconnaissance drone rises almost silently from behind a line of hills. It quickly gains altitude and emerges directly over the battle formations of the Grand Army. From below, it is barely visible, only a few soldiers look up, mistaking the dark speck for a bird or a strange balloon. At this moment, the battlefield is completely revealed to the tank platoon. Dense rectangles of infantry, artillery batteries, and columns of cavalry in reserve appear on the screens. The outdated 19th century formations are transformed into a digital target map. The platoon commander begins prioritizing, first the guns, then the command nodes, then the cavalry. The tank platoon commander gives a short command. The tanks take up firing positions, using the hills for cover. The first targets are the artillery batteries, the main source of threat to the armor. On the thermal imagers, the guns appear as bright dots in the cold ground. Almost simultaneously, several tank guns open fire. Shells fly kilometers in seconds and rain down on the batteries. Cannons shatter, their crews disappear in clouds of fire and earth. For the French army, it seems like a thunderclap without flash or smoke. Death comes instantly and out of nowhere. The explosions of artillery set off a chain reaction of terror. Napoleon's infantry lines freeze. The soldiers don't understand where the blow came from. There are no volleys, no musket smoke, no visible enemy. The officers try to restore formation, shouting commands, ordering them to maintain their lines. But the ground trembles from further impacts. Shells tear through the dense formations, leaving gaping holes in the lines. The familiar tactics of tight ranks, designed for musket fire, suddenly turn into a death trap. The French commanders quickly make a decision. The infantry is ordered to form squares, a proven defense against cavalry. The soldiers form tight squares, bayonets pointed in all directions. The drums beat out again, officers shout orders. But the enemy doesn't gallop with sabers. Shells continue to fly from a great distance. The squares, designed to repel mounted attacks, become ideal targets. One well-aimed shot, and dozens of men vanish in flames and shrapnel. The tactics that have saved armies for decades no longer work here. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide of battle, the French command launches a cavalry attack. Thousands of horsemen surge forward, sabers flashing, their formation quickening. For them, this is a familiar moment of triumph, crushing the enemy with a powerful blow. But the tanks spot the cavalry even before the attack. Thermal imagers reveal a long, moving wave of targets. As the horsemen reach open ground, the tanks open fire. Shells tear through the dense masses of cavalry, turning the rapid onslaught into chaos and panic. After the failure of the cavalry charge, Napoleon's army begins to crumble. Commands no longer reach their destination, drums drowned in the roar of explosions. the soldiers watch as entire units disappear in seconds. No one knows where to fire, the enemy is invisible. Lines break, squares disintegrate, and a spontaneous retreat begins. Warfare based on visual contact and massed fire proves powerless against an enemy that kills from a distance, remaining out of reach. After suppressing the main forces, the tank platoon begins a slow advance. The vehicles emerge from behind the hills, becoming visible to the enemy for the first time. For 19th century soldiers, this appears as the appearance of steel monsters. Enormous tracked vehicles move through smoke and dust, heedless of musket fire. Bullets bounce uselessly off the armor. Each new tank shot finally breaks the will to resist. After a short time, by the standards of modern warfare, it's all over. The battlefield is strewn with abandoned weapons, wrecked cannons, and the scattered remnants of a once great army. The tank platoon halts, controlling the territory. For the Napoleonic era, this defeat is incomprehensible. For modern soldiers, it's a clear demonstration that technology completely rewrites the rules of war if the enemy is stuck in the past. The French command tries to regain control of the situation. Couriers hop between disparate units, relaying orders to retreat and regroup. Generals on the hills try to figure out what's happening, but they can't see the enemy. Maps are useless, calculations are flawed, and the entire logic of battle is crumbling. Meanwhile, the drone continues to hover over the field, instantly identifying all command nodes. The tank platoon receives new coordinates. Now the target is the headquarters and officers on whom any semblance of order still depends. A few well-aimed shots, and the last elements of control disappear. Explosions blanket the command positions, destroying communication between the corps. The army is completely deprived of its decision-making center. Soldiers act disorganized or simply flee. For a tank platoon, this is a standard phase of combat, the suppression of enemy command and control. For a 19th century army, this is a catastrophe, after which organized resistance becomes impossible. After the loss of command, a mass flight begins. Columns of soldiers rush from the battlefield, abandoning weapons, guns, and banners. The cavalry, deprived of orders, disintegrates into separate groups. The tanks no longer pursue, they simply observe. Modern doctrine no longer demands the destruction of a fleeing enemy. The battlefield itself clears of an army no longer capable of fighting. When the smoke clears, it becomes clear, this was not a battle in the traditional sense. The tank platoon remains almost undamaged. Not a single musket, not a single gun could have seriously influenced the outcome of the battle. Symbols of the old war, bayonets, drums, cannonballs, lie on the ground. Next to them are tracks, thermal imagers, and digital screens. The difference between the eras is clear without words. The battlefield grows quiet. The wind blows smoke across the plain. The tanks take up a perimeter defense and await further instructions. For them, the battle was a brief episode. For history, it was a moment when it became clear, numbers, formation, and courage are meaningless without technology. Napoleon's army lost not to the enemy, but to a future that arrived too soon. Despite the general collapse, individual units of the French army continued to resist. Small groups of infantry occupy villages, forest edges, and stone buildings, hoping to find shelter from the fire. Officers issue orders to fire at any sighting of the enemy. But the tanks do not engage in direct contact. Using UAVs, targets are identified in advance. A few well-aimed shots, and pockets of resistance disappear without ever seeing the enemy. This isn't a battle, it's a clearing of the area. The remaining soldiers try to use everything they have. Artillerymen fire randomly at muzzle flashes, while the infantry fires muskets at distant silhouettes. Cannonballs fall far from their targets, bullets fail to reach the armored vehicles. The tanks continue to advance without haste, ignoring the fire. Every attempt at resistance only highlights the technological gap. 19th century weapons are simply not designed for this level of warfare. By midday, the tank platoon has complete control of the area. UAVs comb the battlefield, recording every movement. All major formations have been destroyed or scattered. Tanks occupy key heights and roads. For Napoleon's army, the battle is over. Any attempt to reassemble will be instantly detected and crushed. The future of war is finally sealed on this field. This defeat cannot be explained in 19th century terms. There is no decisive attack, no heroic maneuver, no duel of armies. There is only the destruction of the structure of war. Infantry, cavalry, and artillery, everything that held the armies of Napoleon's era together, has proven useless. History is broken here not by the number of casualties, but by the absolute superiority of technology. When a tank platoon leaves the battlefield, all that remains of the Grande Armée is history. This battle is not about bravery or tactics, it is about time. If an army is stuck in the past, the future will destroy it without a chance. On this field, it was not the tanks that won. It was the era that arrived too early.